Meeting to order. For the record, I'll call the meeting to order and declare that a quorum is present. Eric or Chris, could you briefly review the status of the minutes and what has and hasn't been, what has not been adopted or approved?
Tom, I can tell you that the minutes from the last two meetings last week, I think that was November 22nd and November 23rd, Monday and Tuesday, are up on the website. I don't think you approved those as a board last week. Eric, do you happen to recall?
I am not positive, but I will pull up the meeting minutes from the 24th, which should tell me the last action taken.
I don't think we met. The 24th was the Wednesday, right? We didn't meet on Wednesday. We did meet on Monday and Tuesday, and if I recall correctly, on Tuesday we did not approve the Monday minutes, so we at least had the 22nd and the 23rd.
I also believe the action was deferred on review and approval of the November 16th.
Okay, so it sounds like we have the 16th, the 22nd, and the 23rd to take a look at it if the board wants to do that today.
All right. Well, let's defer on those for the time being. I think our focus has been a little bit elsewhere. Are there any members of the public who would like now to address the board during the public comment agenda item? I think my screen lets me see everyone, and I don't see anyone so requesting, so we'll move on to the agenda item 4, which is to review, discuss, and act on the final Senate district map. And Jeremy, could you bring us up to date on the methodology or remind us of the methodology you used in compiling the map that you posted over the weekend?
Sure. So I basically started with the House map that was adopted last week. And because all of the districts were single member districts, and we know that for every House district for every 5 House districts, there should be a corresponding Senate district just by math. So 30 senators, 150 members of the House. I tried to find the way to combine those House districts in as clean a way as possible, trying to, when possible, follow county lines, and trying, when possible, to not break over towns. I was not able to do that in all cases, but and honestly, I'm not super excited about the map that I put out, mainly because the amount of time I put on in the other Senate map, that I presented a month or so ago. The reason I like the other one better is because it seems more cohesive. It seems more coherent. But the big thing here, and I guess this is one of the things that we should decide whether how important it is or not, is that if we were to adopt that map, we would have Senate districts crossing House district lines, which is, I don't know that that's any sort of statutory requirement, but it's certainly, in terms of who's in what district and printing ballots and whatever, could make things more complicated.
By that you mean just for example, a House district, let's say composed of 4 towns, where some of the towns are in one Senate district and others are in a different Senate district?
Right, or in the case of something like we have a House district that sort of does a little, does a little sideways jag or borrows a little part of one town. It could be that part of the town is in one House district, separate from separate from another House district in the same town. So the town could be in 2 different House districts, but all in the same Senate district. So it could be either of those things, either the scenario that I just said or the scenario you said, Tom.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Which map are you proposing that the board approve?
I don't know that we even had a conversation about what we consider to be important in a Senate map other than single member districts, which we, folks have lined up one way or the other about. But in terms of the other balancing act, I'm not sure that folks have weighed in one way or the other. And to be clear, the map that I'm presenting today is certainly not the only arrangement of collections of 5 towns. I'm sorry, collections of 5 House districts to make Senate districts. It was the one that looked to me the most reasonable. But as these things go, you're certainly not going to make everybody happy, and you're going to make a fair number of people unhappy.
Would it be possible, Eric, for you to share the screen, the hosting duties with Jeremy, so that he could post one of the 2 Senate areas?
Yep, should be done.
Okay, stand by. Is that visible?
Yes.
Great.
I noticed in a couple of places, Jeremy, this may just be a cleanup issue, is that there were maybe 1 or 2 of these that didn't have a district name tagged to them, and maybe that was a space problem.
Yes, that was just a space problem.
Okay.
I tried to make the borders of the districts a bit darker and a bit thicker. So I can go into Chittenden County, for example. But these all follow the district lines that are, from the previous House map.
So let's take a look at Essex. So that's all of Westford and a portion of the town of Essex.
Right. So there are 6 House districts that are, entirely or in part in Essex. There's 6 House districts that are entirely or partially in Essex. And so the 5 make up this Senate district. And then there is a little bit more of Essex that goes with Westford. This is 1 House district. And then there's 2, then there's the other 4 in these neighboring towns here.
All right.
Jeremy, this
Yeah.
is Jeannie. I noticed over in Northfield, there's a piece that doesn't look to me like it's the same as from the House district.
So this did get updated. This was updated with the suggestion from Ann Donahue from the last meeting. That was one of those cleanups. I mean, we can move it back if folks want to do that. But that was mentioned in the last meeting with the big, I don't know if you remember the big map that was taped together.
No.
Okay.
Did I miss a meeting?
Yeah, well, I think there was one meeting where you didn't come in at the very beginning, Gene, and maybe it happened there. I don't know.
Okay.
Um, So if this is what the board approves, at some point, the board needs to articulate, at least conventionally, the board would articulate in a report how this complies with or is sensitive to the non-numerical or non-population factors that are in section 1903 of the statutes of Title 17, which we're very familiar with those three non-population factors. And have you or anyone else thought about how that would be articulated?
I think I mentioned some of them in the beginning, you know, when possible. I was trying to follow county boundaries and not go outside of them. So we have, you know, districts here in southern Chittenden County, Addison County. You know, these boundaries, as much as possible, were I was drawing them to conform with county boundaries. Again, like I said, the way that the underlying House districts, grouping them together didn't always allow for this, but oftentimes they did.
Did you make any changes to the contours of any House districts as part of that effort?
Back when we were drawing the House districts, yes,
no, for this map.
No, I was going to leave well enough alone. No, I did not change any House districts.
So
Jeremy, did you, sorry, Tom.
go ahead, please.
I just wonder if you, for some of the topics that you were just mentioning, and Tom has also mentioned, if you have a kind of a listing of where, I mean, I can see, of course, looking, but whether you've collected together the places where a town is, say, in more than one, is been split into more than one Senate district.
I can eyeball it. I have not done that. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10 on this side of the map. I would have to pull up the other one. $11. Yeah, only one on the south side by the looks of it.
Though isn't Rutland Town,
Oh, sorry, yes,
You?
12, Rutland Town.
Howerton?
West Rutland, Rutland Town. I counted Hubbardton because it was in the top map.
Oh. Hmm. And how about the county question you guys were just talking about?
How many cross counties? 2, 3.
Yeah,
6 in the north. Oops. 10.
thank you.
And I think I asked over the weekend, it probably is still on in the inbox, the Secretary of State's office, they could run the compactness measurements on this map to see what that looks like compared to anything else that we've been looking at, including the current Senate map.
So Tom, if we have the file path for this, we can turn that around fairly quickly. And would you be looking at the Reoc and Polsby Popper? Were those the measurements that seem?
Yes.
Okay. Mia's on the call. Mia, did you hear that?
Yes, I can run that right now. Jeremy, would you be so kind as to send me a file path?
Sure, I need to log in and do that, so hold on a second.
Okay.
And but Jeremy, is it fair to say that the driving methodology for this map was starting with the single member district house map and compiling clusters of 5 districts to form single member Senate districts?
The single driving motivation for this was to not split House districts.
And okay, but towards the overall goal of a single district Senate map.
Right.
How many, does anyone know how many towns does the current Senate map subdivide? Anyone aware of that? Does that ever come up in your comings and goings?
I don't think it's any, actually, but I could be wrong.
Jeannie, I think you're correct. I don't think it does any. I'm searching my brain and I can't think of any.
Isn't Colchester and then the Northeast Kingdom? Those both have multiple towns from multiple counties in them.
Yeah, but it doesn't split a town.
Oh, splitting towns.
It's not like you have half of Colchester in one district and half in the other.
Right.
Anyone else like to weigh in on this proposal from the board?
I'm in favor of sticking with 5 House districts making up a single Senate district. I think that just makes the most sense. And even though it does leave town split, it's in the context that we're presenting it, it's actually less complicated.
Mary or Ed, like to weigh in or have any questions?
I'm all good.
No questions. But Mr. Cafferty has one.
There you go.
First, I want to compliment you. I actually like the design that you have come up with and the rationale behind it. I only had one question now, was with regards to Burlington. Would Burlington be broken into 2 parts, and could you give me a rough idea where that line would be?
Yes, Burlington is broken into 2 parts. So if you were to look at the House map, I actually have the Senate map now up. It's essentially broken to north and south. The first 5 numerically, the first 5 districts of the House in the Burlington map from what we adopted last week would be in one district, and the other 5 would be in the other district. Let me share this. So there you have it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My concern about it is that, which is derivative of my concern about the single member House map, so this won't come as any surprise to anyone, that it elevates a factor that is not contained in our law to a improper level, that being the primacy of single member districts. And while that may be a good idea, I don't think it's contemplated to in a sense, don't think the law permits that to obliterate the statutory and constitutional directives concerning subdivision of existing political subdivision lines, and recognition and maintenance of patterns of geography, social interaction, trade, political ties, and common interests. So to me, it's out of balance for those reasons, and I could have supported recommending that the General Assembly study that as a possible change in the law, but much as I've tried, I can't support this or the other plan because I don't think they're within the meaning and intent of Section 18 of the Constitution or Section 1903 of Title 17. But we may have an equally split vote on this right now without Tom Koch here to express his view and take a vote. And that might be true of either Jeremy or the map that you posted yesterday and of the one you posted a week earlier. So I'm not sure what your druthers are concerning how to proceed. We could recess this meeting in some fashion until a later time today or tomorrow to permit a full vote on that, and then get on with the rest of our business.
Tom?
Go ahead, Jeannie.
So a couple things. I just wanted to echo your comments about this map, Jeremy's map. I think there are, I find it dismaying that in the discussion of it, there was no mention of the factors in statute, specifically recognition and maintenance of patterns of geography, social interaction, trade, political ties, and common interests, especially given some of these districts stretch quite a long way across the state, over the mountains, and just do not seem to me to represent natural or expected combinations of towns. And so all we really have is, 5 districts make up something. And I just don't think that's, I think people expect more than that. Just because 5 districts can be lumped together to make up to make a Senate district is really nowhere near what I think our role should be in terms of justifying why we formed a district in a particular way. And the other thing is, I have Senate maps too, so
well, this might be a good time to make for you to make a presentation in that space, Jean.
okay. So this, can everyone see it?
Yes.
So this is a map that is largely the same as a map I had previously shared with the board about a month ago. I'll just say a few things about it and specifically point out the places that are different. You can see it is largely county-based. In fact, many of the districts are fairly close to the current districts. I felt that was, I didn't feel there was a need to, there was any justification necessarily to make a change there. I think even though we've talked about the fact that counties don't have government structures quite, in the same way as towns do, people do feel, I think we've learned quite a lot that people feel quite, they do feel something close about their county and a certain identity. And I did not feel that it was necessary for us to go out of our way to disrupt that. The portion that I may have mentioned, not sure that I'd shared yet, was in a prior incarnation, I had the 2 districts that are currently here, the Orange and the Caledonia ones, they were combined into a single 2-member district. And after some feedback and thinking about how much that was a kind of stretched out and how much territory that covered, I did decide to split it into 2 1-member districts, or at least to see that it could be done, which it could be done. So I did that. And then the other difference is in the Chittenden area, and I'm going to stop this one and open another one so you can see it better. I mean, well, we can zoom in on it, but I do have one that shows that region more close up. It's basically 2, you can't see one of them because it's covered up by a label, but there's 2 2-member districts and 1 1-member district for Chittenden proper, and then an additional Chittenden Grand Isle district that it's primarily, I mean, the largest population is from Chittenden. It's Colchester and Milton, and then it has all of Grand Isle and also George and Fairfax from Franklin. So I can stop that one, and I'm just gonna open that just so you can see that a little more closely. So as I mentioned, there's a 2-member district, which is Chittenden East, and that does include all the Mount Mansfield Union School District towns who were hoping to be together in a Senate district, and I was particularly motivated to do that just because I couldn't satisfy some of the requests on the House side, so I worked particularly hard to make sure not to break them up on the Senate side. And then, but it also includes Westford and Essex and Heinsberg. And then I have another district, which I've called Center East, CE, which is Shelburne, St. George, Williston, and it does include a portion of South Burlington. And then this district is what I called Center, and that's the rest of South Burlington, Winooski, and a part of Burlington. And then the remainder is a 1-member district, which is the rest of Burlington.
In the existing Chittenden Senate District has 6 members, and the Grand Isle Chittenden has 1, for a total of 7 for that area.
Yeah, so this altogether has 8. And yeah.
Okay. And did you, at some point you have a different variation on this segment of the map in terms of the number? This is a 2 + 2 + 1-member district. I apologize, I'm getting a little, looking at too many screens.
Yeah, so I know what you're asking, I think, Tom. So I had made a version of this map where I actually had 2 3-member districts plus the Grand Isle district, the 2-member Grand Isle, Chittenden, and then the 2 Franklin towns. I had at one time had I had divided it just into 2 3-member districts. I got kind of stuck deciding what I wanted to do, and I left it as 2 3-member districts. But then subsequently went back in and somehow managed to find a little more patience, and that's when I divided it again in a cleaner way than I had originally done into the two member and the two 1-member districts. I think my very first pass at the Chittenden area, I had divided up Burlington and South Burlington in a slightly more complicated pieces, more and more complicated pieces. So this one is cleaner. It does divide both Burlington and South Burlington, but each just one time. And I think the groupings, I think, make sense. I also kept what for my map had been a House district kind of intact, tried to keep that logic as well. And I did want to say something about the 3-member districts, which are still, there are a few 3-member districts still in this map. And in fact, Tom Koch sent me a couple of suggestions or ideas he had about breaking up those 3-member districts into a 1 and a 2-member. I eventually decided to keep the 3-member districts, and the main reason is that, number one, that they're not prohibited. I mean, they're not. There's nothing. The legislature had an opportunity to and did in fact change the maximum number of senators in a district, and they left it at 3. So at least from a statutory perspective, it is certainly allowable and reasonable. But maybe the more important reason, or at least the one that I have in mind, is that, I think, and I mentioned this earlier in this process of our discussions on the board, there is research that says that a 3-member district, for not necessarily for Senate or not necessarily in Vermont, but just a three-member district with a kind of ranked choice voting in a multi-member district, there's a special type of voting system, is the best for representation of everyone, of groups that are in a minority in that district and others. It achieves closer to proportional representation, so that you don't have sections of districts that don't feel represented. So I feel that leaving some 3-member districts when they're reasonable provides the legislature an opportunity to consider those that form of voting, which, as I said, there's been a fair amount of research suggesting is the best for representative democracy. So I made the choice to leave some in there with that in mind. And happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Are Burlington and South Burlington the only towns that are divided in your map?
I believe they are.
Thank you.
Okay. So we can try a couple of things. We can take a couple of votes here and see where the chips fall, and see if we are surprised by anything. At least we'll know one way or the other. I'm open to proceeding in some other way, but that would certainly confirm what I think most of us probably believe. Is there any objection to what I was contemplating would be to take a vote on Jeremy's proposal posted yesterday, and then, depending upon the outcome of that, take a vote on Gene's most recent Senate map and see what the outcome of that looks like, Is there any proceeding in that manner? Ed?
I just wanted to comment on the discussion so far, if that's in order.
Yes.
Thanks. And again, I just want to thank the folks that, put a lot of time and energy into these maps, because I certainly know that's not an easy thing to do. But I did want to just sort of push back a little bit on something that you said respectfully, Tom. I think that you used the word obliterate, which is a pretty strong word. And obliterate the Constitution and the statute. And I'd like to think that something that I'm going to vote on, or the way that I'm voting, isn't an obliteration of either of those things. As I've said previously, I think reasonable minds can differ. I'm not going to rehash why I think that the single seat Senate map falls within arguable constitutional and statutory parameters, but I think that it does. And I haven't heard anybody articulate specifically why it doesn't, to the contrary, other than to say it could be better. And I think that any map could be better, but ultimately we need to decide on something. And I also, I want to leave room again for reasonable minds differing in relation to Jeannie's position that larger Senate districts or multi-seat Senate districts are more representative. I think that there's been, that our discussions have shown that there's arguments to be made on both sides of that issue as well. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Well, if I may, Ed, do you think that it's not practicable to divide fewer towns by using both types of districts that are permitted to be used in the Constitution and the statute?
It probably is practicable, but since there's no specificity given in either of those, other than to say that it should be something that's viewed, as opposed to guidance we've been given by the courts regarding the standard deviation, I think it's difficult to say definitively, without having that guidance from the court or from the statute, that a division of 10 towns is acceptable, but a division of 12 isn't acceptable. And
a division of 10 towns versus 45 towns.
Well, again, we don't have any guidance along those lines. So while I understand that the quantification of that is might seem problematic, we haven't received any guidance. And I would note, Tom, that the Constitution says, the very first thing it says in the second paragraph of section 18 is, in establishing senatorial districts which shall afford equality of representation. And I don't want to rehash the discussions that we've had regarding equality of representation, and again, reasonable minds can differ, but I do want to say that I believe that that is the first thing that the Constitution asks us to look at, and I believe that single seat districts are the best form of equality of representation. I understand that some of you disagree with that, but that's where we are. Is there another question, Tom?
I have a
No.
comment.
Go
I'd
ahead.
like to, I don't think it's just whether we disagree on that topic of equality of representation. We know how the courts interpret equality of representation, and they interpret it with respect to minimum deviations from standard. So I don't think that's really up for debate as far as this committee goes. I mean, I think what it comes down to, in my mind, I don't think this is that different from what Tom has said, is that some members of the board, and they had more votes, decided they wanted to use a criterion that was important to them as more important, really, that to the extent that that you think about the ones that are in statute, it still has to be within the framework of single member districts, or it's not going to fly for you. So, which I have a problem with, because I don't think a majority can just decide to insert their own priorities over and above what the statute says. But my final comment also is, we don't really have to guess about whether, going back to the comment about whether how many towns are divided and so forth. That it does say, and I'm looking at section 1903, the representative and senatorial districts shall be formed consistent with the following policies insofar as practicable. And to me, that means if it's possible to have fewer divided towns, that's what you should be doing. And it is, we know it's possible because mine has fewer divided towns. We don't have to like guess that something might be better on that with respect to that criterion. We have an example that's better.
Go ahead.
I appreciate all that, Jeannie. I just, one thing I wanted to know, and I'll admittedly say I'm not, haven't memorized every Vermont Supreme Court case, so I'll take that, take this cautiously, but I'm not aware of the Vermont Supreme Court explicitly defining equality of representation under the Vermont Constitution, which is different than what the federal courts may have decided under the US Constitution. And Tom or anybody else, correct me if I'm wrong on that, or maybe I am wrong, I don't know, but that's my understanding anyway.
Well, thanks for that exchange. That I think that's good for our record to have that on the record. So is anyone, is there any opposition to me proceeding with some votes to see where we come down, so we get that out of the way?
So I should mention that there's another option. There's the previous Senate maps that both Jeannie and I have presented. I mean, there's more than just the two that we saw today.
Without Tom Koch here, would it just make sense to sort of have a straw vote on a direction, and then when we have a full board present to present the different options within that direction? Because as Jeremy pointed out, there are different ways of approaching what I think will be the majority support.
Well, yeah, whether it's I don't think, it doesn't matter to me whether it's a straw vote or not. I would just try to think of some way to move it along. Well, I'll do this. Would anyone like to make a motion?
For the sake of argument, I'll move to approve Jeannie's map as presented today, which is not the direction thing, but it gets us to the same place.
I'll second that motion.
Will you debate the motion? Not all in. I guess I'll do a roll call here. Rob Roper.
No.
Jean Albert.
Yes.
Mary Houghton.
Yes.
Ed Adrian.
No.
Jeremy Hansen.
No.
Tom Little votes yes. Would anyone else like to make a motion? And we can roll this over until another time. While you're thinking about whether anyone wants to make another motion, I have drafted a letter to the clerk of the Vermont House of Representatives that is quite similar to the one that the board sent 10 years ago, and it would explain that attached or enclosed is the single member district house map that the board approved, and explaining that the balance of the written report will be coming, I picked within 20 days. And I'm anticipating that we would do something comparable with the Senate map, but I was thinking of trying to get the letter to the clerk of the House later today. In terms of when we could reconvene to take a final vote on a Senate map, I think I'm trading places with Tom Koch. I think he's doing medical appointments this morning, and I'm doing them this afternoon. That would kind of eat up my schedule from about 12:30 till somewhere around 4 o'clock. But that's very hard to be clear about, and that 4 o'clock could go to 5 or 5:30 pretty easily, which since I think we need everybody present, might not work. The other time in the next 2 days for me would be sometime tomorrow afternoon. Is there, and we don't have time here to comment on that, but is there anyone else on the board who could not meet, let's say at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon?
If it's quick, I can meet from 1 to about 1:45, but then I have a 2 o'clock and a 3 o'clock.
Okay.
I could come back at 4.
I think this, at least the business part of the meeting, could be done within that time frame, Rob.
Okay.
Yeah, I just to echo what Rob said, I would need to be done by 1:40 at the latest, because I have a meeting at 2.
Rob, do you have the ability to send a text message to Tom?
I think so.
Well, could you try seeing if a 1 o'clock Tuesday PM meeting would work? We do now have colorized versions of the as adopted single member district house map and as of Gene Albert's final proposal. I think those are in the process of being uploaded to the website. And go ahead.
No, I guess I would also just ask folks to look back at the one on the website, the map on the website that's under the, was it November 1st? Under Senate maps, the proposal that I put up there.
The Rutland Donut.
The Chittenden Donut. Well, the
Chittenden.
Chittenden donut would be split though, and Burlington would be split. Because who can eat a whole donut themselves?
Even at this time of year. Well, let's just do this. If before we adjourn, Rob, if you see something coming back from Tom, please interrupt whatever else is going on.
The text has been delivered, but no response as yet.
Okay, he's busy with other important things for sure. I will be sending around midday today I made further progress in a House report, and I've gotten to the point where the two paths in the wood are diverging in terms of the single member only supporters and the other members of the board, and it's sort of a jumping off point. There can easily be a place there for a minority report, but there's a lot of work yet left to be done to on a district by district basis to explain the choice of towns or subdivisions of towns and cities, how that choice aligns with the statutory factors in section 1903. And I don't think that I'm the best person to do that work under the circumstances. So we need to figure out how that work is going to be done, or whether it's going to be done at all or be done in some different or different manner, a different structure or approach. And it may be that the minority report will include some of that work to explain the choices that were made in formulating that house map, so that both would be available one way or the other in some form.
Tom, I just got a note back from Tom Koch. He says he cannot do a meeting tomorrow at 1. He may be able to join us later within this hour if we want to hold the meeting open.
Oh, okay.
I sent him another text that said, what do you mean by later? And I haven't heard back yet.
Well, right. And there might be a way, I don't know whether our technology allows him to dial into.
There he is.
Is he on?
Good morning.
Hello.
Oh, there he is.
Morning. Thank you for jumping into this, Tom. We really appreciate understanding your schedule for this morning.
Crazy. Thank you.
We have discussed, Jeremy made a presentation on his single member district Senate map. Jean made a presentation of her most recent proposal for a Senate map. We discussed them. We took a vote to see what would happen on Jean's map, and it was a 3-3 tie vote.
A surprise.
And we were then going to consider taking a vote on Jeremy's map, but I guess I would turn the floor over to Jeremy, who has said that, you know, he has posted, I think, a total of 3 different Senate maps, and it looks as though from where the votes are falling that one of them is likely to receive a majority vote from the board, but all things being equal, it would be nice to get that vote taken now if people feel comfortable and ready to take a vote. But somebody would have to make a motion as to which of those maps, those single district Senate maps, we would be voting on.
If I could have hosting privileges back, I can share share my screen with the previous map. I mean, if you don't already have it up. So Gene, since that's you right now, I think you have to hand it back off to me.
Sorry, just a second.
All good. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. Okay, so this is the nicely colorized map that the Secretary of State or Legislative IT put together for this. So this does not, except in the case of Burlington, does not split any towns. Does in some cases go over county boundaries. But yeah, so all of these are single seat districts. The only excuse me, the only multi-seat districts right now are this Chittenden Mid and the Chittenden Donut, as I called it, and that was just because I hadn't actually tried to split Burlington because we didn't know what the district lines looked like. It could be that we would take the same Burlington split that I had in my previous map, and then we would just need to find some split of this donut that would work out to do roughly half and half. And just to be clear, this district would likely, if separated into 2 one-seat districts, would likely split a town. I don't know that there was a nice way to separate them, because if there was, I would have already included it.
Okay, well, these are all single member Senate districts.
These are. This was the other one that was just what we talked about earlier, Tom. These were Senate districts, all single member, that were put together by stitching the individual House districts that we approved last week.
Right. That's
together.
what I suggested way back when. And I just took a quick look at your map there, and it looks quite reasonable. I'm prepared to support it.
We got it.
Mr. Tom Koch, which of those two, did you say you want to support?
To support Jeremy's map that was just on the screen.
The one where we're connecting together the individual House districts?
Yes.
Well, is that a motion, Mr. Koch?
Oh, I guess so.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Will you discuss it any further?
Just so the record's clear, and I can see it, but I just want to make sure that we know, everybody knows what they're voting on. So this is the map that the second map that Jeremy created that is based off of the House district map, the House map that was passed last week. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thanks.
Just to be clear one more time, it's not the colorized map.
No, it's this uglier red and white one.
Okay.
Okay.
If you're ready for the question, I'll call the roll. Ed Adrian,
Yes.
Jean Albert,
No,
I got them already.
um, Jeremy Hansen,
Yes.
Mary Houghton,
No,
Tom Koch,
Yes.
Rob Roper,
Yes.
Tom Little is a no. So thank you for that. And we will,
They took all of them and they brought them back there. They should have told me.
Chris will need to convert that into the final format as we've done previously.
Okay, is that all you need me for today?
I think that's the only vote we're expecting to take today, Tom, but we'll stay in touch with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll bow out here. Have a good day, all.
Thanks, Tom.
So back to the written reports. What I have done with the House report and will do with the Senate report is can write it up to a certain point. And I think the Senate report is always a lot shorter. But I think the completion of that in terms of the district by district portion will need to be done by someone who I think is prepared to write how in support of the single member district proposal. I don't think I would be a good choice for that, frankly. Or if the folks who came down on that side of that question believe that there should be a different structure or approach or format to that report, then that needs to be written as well. So I'm looking for either now or following the meeting and following further discussion, perhaps volunteers to take that on.
I anticipated doing a lot of work on that, so you can count me in.
Okay. And you can.
I'd like to put our heads together though, Tom, because I think I need some guidance from you as to the best format and content that needs to be put in there.
Okay, I'm up for that. We could. I'm thinking ahead to when those reports are completed. It's and to try to be faithful to the public meeting laws, we probably need a meeting to be scheduled in order to have people sign off on those reports, as opposed to sending around a series of emails. I think that needs to be done in a public open meeting. But I don't think we know when that needs to be scheduled yet. So I will let you all know about that. If anyone thinks that we need to meet sooner than that would take, please let me know. Thanks for your efforts on this. I know there's some disappointment that we didn't come to a stronger consensus, but we did finish the two maps. And there were times when I'm sure some of us didn't think that was going to happen or despaired about it one way or the other. Would anyone like to take anything else up as part of this meeting? I don't see anything in the chat. Don't see any hands coming up. So if seeing no objection to adjourning, we'll stand in adjournment until we meet again. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.